So before I got on my bike ride, I read a article about a company in Louisiana. I can't remember the name of the company. Once I get done, I'll post up the actual uh, article, the picture of the article. But pretty much it was saying that this company will now start charging the spouse of people whose spouses have not been vaccinated. Let me kind of rewind that. The company, it's a Louisiana company. I think it's like the largest healthcare company. I don't want to get my information incorrect, so I'll actually post up the actual article itself. But the largest in Louisiana, the largest healthcare company in Louisiana, I believe, um, will be charging the employees who are married to and or living with someone who's a domestic partner that is not vaccinated. They'll be charging them on a monthly basis a fee for being unvaccinated. So once again, where do you draw the line? When do you say enough is enough? So this company has mandated that all their employees be vaccinated. And so the employees, for the most part, have complied with those mandates. But now they're moving in even closer and saying that if you are married to someone who is unvaccinated or you're living with a domestic partner who is unvaccinated, every month they go unvaccinated, we will also charge you an additional $100 to $200 a month because they're saying that if they go to the hospital because of COVID, they're going to have to pay for that, and that's going to increase their them not being vaccinated is going to increase their chances of going to the hospital for COVID. So once again, check out my video I did on the end of Obamacare, because all the stuff you're seeing right now about the additional charges that's going to come along with people not being vaccinated, the additional charges of health insurance, this goes directly in opposition with Obamacare, which the very people who are currently in power right now actually set up and put in place. And so Obamacare was about pre-existing conditions, not charging people for their health risk, their health factors. So if you are someone who has type 2 diabetes, if you're someone who's dealing with obesity, high blood pressure, your price when it comes to the healthcare market should be the same as someone who has no issues whatsoever. A young 22-year-old should have, with no health history, should have the same price of insurance for someone who may be diabetic or dealing with obesity. That was Obamacare. So you can no longer assess the risks of your customer and add on based on their health risk or factors. And so what we see right now is a complete undoing of these policies, which you have to wonder, when is it going to stop? Like, how far are you going to go with that? Because if your rationale for saying that we're going to charge you more because you're not being vaccinated puts you at risk at being hospitalized, well, where is that going to stop? Because we understand that 94% of people who have been hospitalized and unfortunately died from COVID had on average 4 underlying health conditions, with obesity, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes being at the top. Will you now start charging people additional on a monthly basis for also being a type 2 diabetic? Will you also start charging people additional money for being over a certain BMI percentage? Will you start charging people for having higher blood pressure or not being compliant with their medication for blood pressure or uncontrolled blood sugar? How far does this go? And how far are you all going to allow this to go? Because once again, you give them an inch and they keep inching closer and closer, and they keep taking a mile. And this progression, this progress that they're making, many of us are actually giving it to them. Like, we're actually placing it in their lap based on and fueled by fear. And once again, yes, I call it irrational fear, because when we look at this thing from a logical perspective and we pull ourselves out of the moment, and we actually see that the actual forest from the trees, you can see that, all right, a lot of things that we're begging for and we're demanding is irrational and is going to end up biting us in the rear. So once again, how far are we going to allow this to go? Now they're going to charge your and if you think, once again, the same thing when Delta started charging their employees an additional $200 a month if they were not vaccinated. You saw it didn't take long before multiple companies started doing that thing. And before we know it, that's going to be the norm. If you choose not to get vaccinated, we're going to charge you an additional fee. That's just going to become the norm. And we allowed it to happen. Like, we pushed for it to happen. We cried for it to happen. A lot of us. I mean, I didn't. But a lot of us, based on our irrationality and fear, we helped fuel this. And once again, you have to remember, after 2021, hopefully, there will be a 2022. So you're going to have to keep up with your shots, okay? So now that they have made that, Delta made that the thing where they're charging people a surcharge or an additional fine for being unvaccinated, you saw other companies start doing it. And that's going to be the norm. Now we have this company over here in Louisiana saying, you know what? It's not enough that our employee is vaccinated. We need to make sure that your spouse is also vaccinated. Or even if they're not your spouse and they're just your domestic partner, they also need to be vaccinated. And if they're not, then we are going to charge you an additional $100 to $200 a month. It's going to become the norm. So soon, so just think about this. People who were like, all right, really don't want to get it, but we're in a very tight bunch. We just went through this lockdown. We had time where we had to depend on unemployment. Money's tight. We had to empty out a savings account. We're in a really tight situation. And you know who knows that, right? Like, they understand that a lot of people are in a very tight situation. Gave out a couple of $600 checks, $1,200 checks, unemployment a little bit. But overall, we know Americans are pretty tight right now. The average American is pretty tight right now as it goes to their fees. And so now you get back to working, you're working, and then boom, the mandates. Now, you're behind. A lot of people are behind on their bills. A lot of people are tight with money. A lot of people have had to deplete their savings account. And now they're being faced with this mandate: get the vaccine or lose your job. Not everybody has the financial backing to just throw up the do sign and walk away. And they know that. They know that. It's coercion. It's coercion. I mean, like, they're acting like, like people. One of the most pointless statements I've heard is that, see, we came up with the mandates for people to get vaccinated at their job. And as you can see, it works. We have 100% compliance with it. Either they got the vaccine or they left the job. Of course it's 100% compliance. Of course, why would it not be? Because if people are faced with losing their job, losing money, losing their livelihood, as far as, being able to provide for their family, and or just completely get fired, a lot of people, and they know this, are going to be pushed in a position where they're going to have to just get the vaccine. So now imagine that, in Louisiana, these folks, they comply. The employees got the vaccine, but your spouse at home has their small business, or they're entrepreneur, or they're self-employed, and they're doing what they're doing. They're minding their own business, and they're making ends meet on the other end, or they stay at home and they watch the kids, or they homeschool the kids. Whatever they're doing what they do, and they're minding their business. And now your spouse comes home and say, yeah, look, I know money's tight, and I know I complied to get the vaccine so I don't lose my job and make things even tighter for us. But now we just got an email that if you don't get it, we have to pay an additional $200 a month, and things are tight. We can't afford $200 a month. So now they got to get the shot. So once again, how far are you going to allow this to go? Where do you draw the line? Like, they have literally stepped into your house. If they're going to mandate that your spouse, and once again, to think that this only stops with the spouse or the domestic partner and won't spill over into the kids and probably your damn dog and your cat, You are mistaken. If you think they're only going to say, all right, you vaccinated your spouse, all right, we're going to leave you alone now. Goodbye. Like, to think that they're going to now leave the house and that's it, you're mistaken. You're delusional at best. These folks will not stop until, one, they get what they want, or we make them stop. That's the only way this whole thing is going to stop. And so now they're in your house, telling you, yo, your spouse needs to be vaccinated. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where the kids need to be vaccinated. So that was one of the things that I read. I think you all should read up on it, and I think you all should really think about this from a rational standpoint. I really think you all should ask just what are going to be the ramifications in 2022 from us allowing these unprecedented things to take place. How is this going to work? Because once again, if you think that they're just going to get this power, and then when this quote unquote pandemic is over, and it turns into an endemic, and they're just going to give the power back, that's not how it works. Like, that is not how it works. It's never worked like that. Once they get it, they're not giving it back. They're only going to continue to creep. And if you don't believe me, see the Patriot Act and see what during 9/11, the rights and the liberties that we gave up, and that they still have, that they have no intentions on. It's like when it's one of those kids that you allow to come over your house when you were a kid, and you're like, yeah, you can play with that, and they're playing with it, and then you're like, all right, can I get my toy back? And they're like, nah, I'm gonna keep on playing with it. They're not giving the power back.